Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Say Report, the show that's not sure how to count backwards in French.
I was gonna say I don't think that that's what, but I thought maybe it's not French, and I'm being racist and assuming it was to begin with.
Regardless of the language that it was, I said 3-1-2 and then hit the record button.
Neither of us being ready for this at all.
So, welcome to the Say Report. I'm your host, Devin Dipper, and joining me from Utah, Sejohn Dipper.
Hey
Or
guys,
Dipper Sarawat. I don't
no,
know.
no,
Is the Double Dipper report. So there's got to be
yeah,
two dippers.
okay.
I don't know if it's going to be about Gravity Falls, even though Disney Plus gave us a whole new mystery to solve with Gravity Falls. I don't know if you've heard this.
I did, and I've got some. Yeah, we'll talk about that because there's some things about that people seem to be leaving out of this whole story. But anyway, keep going.
That's it. So I'm Devin Decker. I'm very excited to be recording because it feels like a double dip of Sejohn itself. Because I get to see the son of a bitch this weekend.
Yeah, it was not much of a surprise, but what we ended up doing definitely was a last minute decision.
Yes, I mean I had fun. I won
Oh,
Trivial Pursuit, or tied for the victory of Trivial Pursuit. So
you
that was
won.
nice.
But yeah, so we got together, played some Trivial Pursuit, but that's not at all what we're talking about.
No, but it's just I don't know.
Because
I
on
was excited to
Saturday,
see you.
no, I know, but on Saturday we've completed one of the longest like unkept promises on this show's history. Not we're not going to solve every mystery on this show, but we solved one on Saturday. Deb and I got together and finally played through Goof Troop together.
We've been at 35 minutes or
And it would
34
have been
minutes and
less.
22
It would have been
seconds.
less if it wasn't for unfortunate interruptions and a couple of moments where we made some poor decisions about item grabbing on both of our parts because I should have grabbed more bells. But anyway, more on that if you watch that video.
I go for you. Yeah, so that's available on twitch.tv/the Stay Report. It's still there. And I'm in the process of converting it over for YouTube. So if you're one of our YouTube viewers, you can watch us play through Goof Troop. It's the
Yeah.
Japanese version, and
Well, I was
it's
gonna say
hard
it's the
mode.
yeah, it was the first time I'd ever played the Japanese version. We played hardcore mode, and I've been thinking about it since we played. I actually really enjoy that there are like so many ways to play that game because with the American version, as you talk about on the stream, that they just increase the difficulty as you're playing. So you always start it easy, and then it works its way up to hard. The idea of being able to choose each was also super cool, but I think it's the first time I've heard about a game that has been like converted like this and decisions made and all this, that every version of the game is a fun one to play for its own reasons. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not
Like,
it's not
yeah.
Contra 3 the Alien Wars as opposed to
Yeah.
Contra Spirits.
Oh,
Because
nice.
Contra
Yeah.
Spirits is the version of Contra 3 you should play.
Well, and I mean to keep it in the same wheelhouse as Goof Troop, it's like what happened with Aladdin. The difference between the version that you can buy right now on the Switch, which was made by Virgin, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and then versus the Capcom one, which to me is the definitive one. And they're two completely different games, right? So when you talk about Aladdin, you have to specify which one is the one that you consider the fun one. I think with Goof Troop, I don't think there's any doubt that there are people out there that would enjoy each and every way of playing that game. Because I fucking loved playing that hardcore with you, man. I don't think I could have done it on my own though. But that was a blast being able to sit there and figure out those block puzzles together.
Yeah, it's what I really like about it is because it's interesting. Once I found out that that was the difference between the two versions, I realized why I never bought a copy of Goof Troop when I was younger. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
some part of me knew that there was a better experience out there. And
You
that
could
and
feel
that
it.
one right there is it. If you just want to like quick speed run that game, play it on the easiest difficulty, the Japanese version. But if you like it really want to test yourself, it's all about that hardcore version. But what I really like is that because you start with harder puzzles in that one, it never seems like daunting the way
Yeah,
that once you get to that final block puzzle, which
yeah,
still took us some time, even though it's the one that you've solved 100 times in
right.
Goof Troop American, is like, oh, but I know that it's solvable because I feel like I've solved things that were harder than this.
Yes,
Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, and that's the thing is the puzzles for that game are so well designed on every difficulty. Like even the easy ones, like when as a kid, I remember still it taking me moments to figure it out, and then how good it felt going back to those puzzles later and knowing how to solve them already. Like I still got that on the easy mode. So like it's just a super well designed game, like all around.
Yeah. And it's cool because I never really thought of it because it was a rental game. And I have a lot to say about rental games this week, this episode. But I specifically remember renting it. And then when I came to a wall of a puzzle that I found too difficult, and actually a big issue with that, like I am a card carrying, self partnered video game player.
Hmm.
So I don't co-op that often, but a lot of those block puzzles are easier with two people.
Well, right, especially when you get to the ones that add things like timing specifically.
Right.
The second that you don't have to worry about running from block to block yourself because you have a partner there, it changes the game completely, for sure.
Yeah. So it's interesting. But even then, like playing alone, I'm like, oh, I got to do these puzzles. Like that's what this game is. Nope. And I
Yeah,
stopped
no.
because I rented it. And, I only had it for like the day back when like
Hmm.
rentals could be, if you returned it the same day, you could get a different game. So I'm
Yeah.
like, well, I'm going to do that and I'll get a different game and I'll be happy with that game. Like all those little, I don't know if I was the only one who took advantage of those things. Like I tell my Cybernator story about the guy told me it'll take you all summer to beat and I beat it, right when I got home. And
Right,
I went
right.
back and I'm like, I was told this would be a long game and I've beaten it twice today. I need
Yes.
something else. And that's when Link to the Past came into my life.
Ah.
Yeah. So I mean, it's that. So it's great. It is. I'm very happy that we finally got to play it. Something that we've been wanting to do for a while. I'm
Yeah.
glad that it went as well as it did. I feel like I've played that game with a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're the third person, like full disclosure, that I've beaten it with this year. And
Okay.
last year I beat it with Zach Dyer from Board with Friends. Which listen to Board with Friends. We don't talk about them near as much as we used to before. Just because I like stopped playing board games. And I figured out why I stopped playing board games. But that can be a story for another time. But Zach and I beat it when he hacked his SNES Mini.
Nice.
So it's one of those games that like I've played it with a lot of people, and I guess not all of them were completely new to it either. Like you, I know, have spent some time
Right.
with Goof Troop, so I'm thinking, oh, maybe it could be that. But no, there are people that have beaten him with multiple times who still are like, "Why are you going so fast?" And it's like, well, I'm going so fast because only one of us needs to leave the room.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, and like there's an element to the idea that there are some games out there that I will argue you need to take your time and go through. Like for instance, we've had this conversation about like Borderlands and the Fallout series and stuff like that, right? And the idea that like kind of playing those with other people gets to be a little bit of a burden if that other person wants to do like you do, which is breeze through stuff. If you want to do things like exploring and all that stuff, right? So what I mean by that is Goof Troop is not a big game. So like it's not like you're out there like trying to uncover secrets or get or get different endings or anything like that. So like one of the things that I love to do when I play through Groove Troop myself is I do all the digging games. I just love doing all the digging games. Not least of which because it loads me up with a bunch of continues and lives and all this other shit, right? So like I, so the fact that we didn't do that didn't bother me though because it's not like that adds enough to the game for me to care. Like I said, it's so well designed and part of that is it's so well balanced. You can do everything in that game and take 4 hours to play it, or you can just breeze through it like we did, and you still kind of get almost the same experience. And I don't know if that's like a criticism or a praise, but it's true, whatever it is.
well, I take that as praise. If someone said to me, "This game is enjoyable, whether I'm rushing through it or taking my time with it," that means that
Yeah,
like the core concepts of what I look for in a good game experience are present there.
are all there. Yeah.
Like that means that that's good controls. That's a satisfying gameplay loop.
Hmm.
Like yeah, it's something I think of, and especially as we had a kind of banner weekend for releases
Yeah,
on
yeah.
November 15th. So
Hmm.
I guess, would you want to jump right into those, or do you have anything else to say before?
Well, I think at this point, there's two major things that we need to talk about this week, and one of them has to be Pokemon.
Oh,
We
of
can't
course.
not talk
Yeah.
about it. As much as we know the juniors are going to get down and dirty in it, we can't let a Pokemon release pass by,
Especially a
not like
Pokemon
this.
release that was as divisive
Yeah.
as Sword and Shield. I have
Mm-hmm.
my copy of Shield in my hand right now, though Luigi's Mansion 3 is in the box. Which, before, like, just housekeeping, I said I hadn't got to a boss battle yet. Literally, the next thing I did was a big old boss battle.
Nice.
Nowhere near as satisfying as the boss battles in the original Luigi's Mansion,
Okay.
but there are specific matches that feel like, oh, you need to learn something about this character in order to catch them. It's not just turn on your vacuum cleaner and suck them down.
Good. Excellent,
Yeah.
man. Cool. But yeah, so some Pokemon. So as somebody that has not yet touched it, because to be honest, I've been kind of waiting to see what was going to happen with the controversy. I'm not, we talked about this before, not hugely invested in Pokemon, so I'm kind of like an outsider looking in. So as somebody that has touched a lot more Pokemon than me, Dev, like, what's up?
I love it. I was not a member of this controversy. Let's look at this controversy head on. I think that's the best place to start.
Yeah.
They're calling it Dexit, which is
Yes.
a portmanteau of Pokedex and Brexit, because finally the gate has been removed from the lexicon and everything's just going to be a remix on Brexit.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Nixon, your legacy is over.
Yeah. And if Brexit gave us anything, it was just another bullshit term for everybody to misuse. But anyway,
Yep.
Yeah, so Dexit.
So Dexit. And the fact of the matter is, even the person who said this wasn't 100% sure. They did not fact check it, but they were under the belief that there are 807 Pokemon at the time that Pokemon Sword and Shield is going to come out.
Yeah.
807 little things exist. So Game Freak decides that they're going to get rid of a substantial amount of them. Like
Right.
half of the Pokemon, they're just like, we're not going to carry them over into this game.
Mhm.
And I don't really care. A big part of Pokemon and what they're going to talk about tomorrow on Junior is developing relationships with your Pokemon. I
Right.
didn't start nicknaming Pokemon until I did my first Nuzlocke 3 years ago, because that's required in the rules, because you're
Right.
supposed to form an attachment to them so that you don't want them to die.
Right.
That's not something that I ever really ascribed to.
Yeah.
I played Pokemon to collect them all. When I got my first copy of Red and Blue back in 1999, my goal was to catch all of the Pokemon. I have a very vivid memory about playing through Pokemon at my friend Matt's house, and we had traded over so that we each had the starters, and then we were competing to see who could get the starters to their second level first.
Right.
And even though he was way ahead of me, I just ended up hitting the right groove near the end, so I snuck ahead and got my Bulbasaur and Squirtle to level 16 before him, and he tackled me trying to shut off my Game Boy so I couldn't save before the evolution happened.
Oh man.
And I'm just like, oh wow, this is a level of like devotion that I'd never want to have for Pokemon. That being said,
Yeah, man.
I got a Pidgey that is level 100 that I gave an Everstone so it would never grow up, and that Pidgey is my guy. I love that Pidgey. That's from Pokemon XY, so only 5 years ago.
Right.
But I still that Pokemon means something to me, and his name is still just Pidgey. I just was like, I want to raise a Pidgey to level 100, because then you throw out a level 100 Pidgey. How are people going to react to that? Not well.
Yeah.
Turns
yeah.
out. Why you got a level 100 Pidgey? Because that's how crazy I am. Do you concede? It's got Gust,
That's fucking
Peck,
golden.
and Quick Attack.
It's all I've ever wanted to do with a Magikarp. It's been my lifelong dream is to raise a Magikarp to a level that it still can't do shit except flop around, but I
It'll have
want people to
tackle. It'll have tackle at level
That's
15.
true. That's
But,
true.
but
But it was more about people seeing the Magikarp and still knowing they were gonna win, but just for the rest of their lives wondering what the fuck I was thinking.
why do they have a level 100 Magikarp? Like, what does he know that I don't know?
Exactly. Is there
It's
something that
you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of Field of Dreams, and oh, I can't think of his name. The Graham, the Moonlight Graham.
Yeah,
And where they meet the doctor and then they pick him up as a younger version of himself to bring him to the game. Field of Dreams is a fucked up movie based on an even more fucked up book. Because the book is Shoeless Joe, and instead of it being a made up author, it's literally J.D. Salinger. And Ray Kinsella, played by Kevin Costner, has a twin brother who literally adds nothing to the story. Except that when they get back from picking up J.D. Salinger and then Moonlight Graham, his twin brother is there. So people thought that he was there the whole time. It's just like, what are you trying to do, writer of this book? What is the point? But it's like Moonlight Graham in Field of Dreams, where he's like, I always just wanted to stare down a major league pitcher and just wink at him. Like, I know what he's gonna do. That's what a level 100 Magikarp is. That's winking at your competitor. Like, I got your number.
I know exactly what you're about to do, and I've got the perfect thing to take care of it. Man. But yeah, so people have been losing their fucking minds. I mean, people have been like to the point of like Gamergate style.
Don't do that. You're just so mad about people using gate incorrectly.
Right. But I mean, that's the name of the crowd now. Like when you're talking about those dudes, or I guess I could call them the Kotaku in action crowd. How about that?
I like that better.
They but yeah, so you know, boycott Pokemon, like this is Game Freak just not wanting to put the effort in, and you know, and then people saying, well, they don't want to push their creators to do this, and this is where I start to get really angry, is like the very, very reasonable concept comes out like, yeah, we've hit a point where the amount of time and effort it would take to do all of this work is just not worth our own personal health. Like we're no longer talking about making a quick buck here. We're now talking about the fact that we don't want our creators to be like dying as they're working on your fucking Magikarp, right? Like so there's this whole movement of people being like, oh, I can't be that hard. They've already got the sprites for this, or they've already got the skeletons for that, or they've already got this mapping already taken care of. And it's just been this insane armchair design going on that is to the point that it's fucking dangerous. Like it's moving in the other direction. I felt like for so long we as an audience were learning more and more about the idea of crunch and the idea of like the pressures being put on these designers to get these games out by a specific date just because that's the one they arbitrarily picked on Kickstarter or something like that. Like we were coming around to the idea that like these people need to be treated equal. And I mean, like, to see the counter reaction now with Pokemon was so upsetting to me. People, and even now that the game's been released, guys out there that have like 20 minutes on a fucking design studio online class are like, oh, watch me put all of these fucking Pokemon back in. And then they're like releasing updates every day of like, look how easy it was for me to put this into the Pokedex. Okay, but you didn't map the creature, you didn't do anything about what its wild form looks like, you haven't done anything like
you didn't balance it for
you didn't
like
balance
the
it
new
with any of the
Pokemon
other
that have
ones.
been added.
Right.
Like,
yeah, there's this really weird attitude that that game design is just so fucking easy that's starting to creep into this conversation, and I really want to squash that quick.
But that's a big problem anyway, is that everybody does believe that game design is easy.
Right.
And an unfortunate truth, and where like crunch gets by, is there are 100 other people who would be willing to do the job in those conditions.
Yeah.
And what this proves, more than the fact that people really are like clueless to what it actually takes to do it in a professional setting, is that it proves that argument that all of these publishers use, that there's 100 other people out there who would do this job for free.
Well, yeah, and that's the problem, is all these assholes
and all these
say
people
this,
coming out, and then
if they ever got that job, they'd feel very differently.
One would hope.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
man.
but yeah, so that whole thing. Again, I think my answer to that was what they should do is just do new Pokemon,
Hmm.
150 new Pokemon,
Yeah.
and just say that you're not going to see anything you've ever seen before in this game, and I would have been fine with that. And I
Yeah.
think a lot. I think it would have been not that I would have been fine with it because I'm fine with what happened. I have no feelings either way. I always want there to be new mons. I don't want it to be the same stuff
Yeah.
because I would just raise another level 100 Pidgey. I'd have another Gyarados. Like I have those Pokemon that mean something to me because of my adventures in Pokemon up to this point.
Yeah.
And I'd rather it be a new experience where I have to go out and find and learn about new creatures than it be the same 150 Pokemon with 100 more.
Yeah.
Like that just seems lazier to me.
Well, and we should point out that after all of this, the release date has come and gone, and they sold 15 million copies already.
Yeah,
More. Yeah.
something like
So I
that.
mean,
It
they're not. It. Yeah.
the
It went nowhere.
boycott Sword and Shield or see you ninth gen, that did
Hmm.
not affect it. But
Yeah.
it's one of those things where I think, I mean, the fact of the matter is we got Pokemon in 1999. It had been
Right.
out for 3 years in Japan before that point.
Hmm.
And then because of how it hit in America, they kind of rushed them into gold and silver.
Yeah.
So their
Yeah.
solution was, well, we already have these 150, we'll just tack on more. And
which
that
at the
said,
time
yeah,
which at the time actually seemed kind of lazy because they basically were just saying, okay, we already have all the work done here, so let's just not put any more effort than where we need to there, which I get, do that needs to happen, all that. But if you were going to point at a time in Pokemon's history when it seemed like they were getting quote unquote lazy, which seems to be the argument here, like how, like, from day one it feels that way. You know what I mean?
right. But also, it sets that dangerous precedent that, like, we can always borrow from the original ones. We don't need to create unique Pokemon. And I don't know. I think that it would have been better if they had been doing that from now on. Or if, in reaction to people, they're being like, we're going to have to eliminate Pokemon. You're not going to have them in this game. And they saw this outcry. They're like, all right, so we'll just develop new Pokemon and nobody will be happy
Yeah.
because there
Yeah.
will be no returning Pokemon. But there's also that like gross side of marketing that comes into the argument
Yeah.
where people would be upset if Pikachu or Charizard were not in this game.
Yeah.
So there's this other level of a lot of it is just like stupid, and stupid is wrong. A lot of it is just attachments that you made to fictional virtual characters
Yeah.
and then being like, well, I can't do that again in this game. But on the other end of it, the ones that definitely avoided the culling, which is what they should have called it, right?
Yeah, right.
The purging. There's so many better words than the Dexit.
Purging Mon.
Yeah. Oh, Purgamon. Shame we already have an episode for this title. Title for this episode. There's so many more elegant ways to deal with it, and I don't know. It's just
Yeah.
and
No,
seeing that
I
money also obviously played a factor, as it often does, which has
yeah.
always been my argument about art and why I have such an issue with it now in the modern world is because money is more important than, the art itself. We want to
Yeah.
make sure this is profitable.
Right, but I think that they really missed an opportunity because you're right. Like this would have been the chance to go full on new library. Because think about it, like it's their first time releasing on a major console
Hmm.
for Pokemon. On top of that, it's
Well, major consoles are a TV based console.
TV based console.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean like on top of that, they're in this place now where they're resetting a ton of stuff on the television show and things like that. Like they're in such a good position to do that restart now that I don't think they're ever going to be there again. And like you're saying, they're probably going to be scared to now do it now that they know the reaction from people losing their precious Pokemon. So like it just is it's unfortunate because like you were saying the game appears to be quite good because like from everything I've heard from people, I've heard from a lot of people like I've never been a completionist, so the fact that there's not going to be 1,000 Pokemon to collect doesn't matter to me. So with that in mind, this game's kind of awesome. It's like that seems to be what I'm hearing from everybody about this game.
I collected the only times I've ever gotten all the Pokemon was Red Blue. I definitely had a completed Pokedex there. And
sure.
then XY, because very early on in that game, they gave you a place where you could easily gain levels. So, like, I would catch a Pokemon, I'd evolve it until it had no more evolutions, and then I'd get another one. And I would just keep doing that. And it gave me a very satisfying gameplay loop with that game that I hadn't found in any other Pokemon up to that point. So I collected all 456, I think, were in that game. And I felt okay about it. And those are the ones that were in game. Obviously, at that point, I could have collected all like 700 that were existed in the world. But I'm like, no, I want every Pokemon that is available on my cartridge without legacy trading. That will make me happy. I'm not going to do that with this game unless I find a Battle Chateau. But already what this game has done that I love is the fact that it was 4 hours before I was at a gym battle. And that's not because I was like goofing off and like hunting for Pokemon. That's because you're not at a gym for such a long time. You can't even trade until almost the 1 hour mark. Like you have to accomplish so much before that opens up to you. Like it feels good. And I also saw a really great argument about all these people who've been playing Pokemon for the last 20 years want the game a certain way, but we shouldn't steal the experience we got to have as 10-year-olds from the future 10-year-olds who are buying this game for the first time.
Right.
And I feel like this game, better than any other game in the Pokemon series, understands that the people who are playing it have played a Pokemon game before. Because there's a lot of times where it's like, do you need me to explain what a Pokemon Center is? And you could say yes or no. Where like it's that thing that I wanted from Link's Awakening, where I've played a Zelda game before, so you don't need to hold my hand the way that this game always did.
Right.
And that didn't happen. But I am happy that in a game like Pokemon, where there are like people in their 30s who are card-carrying Pokemon trainers, they decided to do that adaptive experience.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, like I said, it sounds like people are actually really happy with this game. You know, you still get your vocal crowd that's still out there. You've got a couple of idiots on Twitter that constantly post like their updates with their, you know, fixing the decks. That's going on that within the next like 2 months that modders basically quote unquote fix the game. So we'll see. But I think at this point, I think it's proven itself more than it had to. And I'm super excited to say that. Like I'm happy because like I've been saying all along, this is going to be the first Pokemon game that I really kind of think I'd dive into. And I'm happy I waited though, because I think I needed this reassurance to spend that kind of money on a game right now. Like needed something to let me know that I was making the right decision.
Make sure you get Sword.
And it sounds like I need to get Sword. Can I get Farfetch'd and Sword?
That's the reason why. I mean, also because I have Shield and your brother has Shield, and Dale has Sword, so another Sword in the Saberport family would make sense. But also, I know you want Surfetched, and that is a Sword exclusive.
All right, that's where I'm going then.
Yeah,
super excited.
So there we go.
That's gonna be great.
So I'd like to talk about another game, and I'd also like to talk about a movie that I saw. Do you want to choose your own adventure here, Sejohn?
Let's stay with games for the moment, because I got a movie thing that I wanted to talk about. I haven't been doing too much in games. I checked out Outer Worlds for all of an hour, and it was funny, which I kind of, I don't know why I didn't expect that. So I'm actually super excited to kind of dive into that, because I was worried it was going to be a very full of itself Destiny style but it's not. It's not at all. But yeah, what have you been doing game-wise?
What I've been doing game-wise is, in addition to Pokemon Sword and Shield coming out on Friday, EA released its apology to Star Wars fans across the nation for Battlefront 2 in terms of Jedi Fallen Order.
Hell yeah. Yeah, let's talk about it.
And
Been doing a ton of Star Wars stuff myself, so
so Jedi Fallen Order came out, and I'm like, I'm not going to buy it. I know that I'm not going to buy it, but it's available at Redbox. So $3, I can try it. And because I had to work on Friday, Dale was super happy because she got to rent Fallen Order and play that while I was at work so that we could both start on an even keel in Pokemon Sword and Shield. It really worked out for us in a way that I'm super happy about. But then, you know, while she was at work on Saturday and before you guys came over, I dived deep into Fallen Order. And the best, I think this is the highest praise that I can give it. I have to buy it now.
Yeah.
Because it was a much deeper and engaging experience than one rental would allow me to complete. And not just in like the terms of like Devil May Cry 5, I beat in a rental period, but I still wanted to play that game more. I completed the story in like a day on a rental. But Fallen Order, you go to different planets, which I didn't expect. I don't know why I didn't expect that from a Star Wars game, but it's not something I expected from it. So you have these beautiful landscapes and this ever-changing environment as you go to these different planets and then have to learn the little idiosyncrasies of the world in order to survive and thrive. Plus, like, the lightsaber, you upgrade the lightsaber.
Yeah.
Like, I got a double-bladed lightsaber, like,
Nice.
right at the end of me playing it.
You think at some point you'll be able to do the hilt daggers that that Kylo has?
I think so. Just because of like trophies and stuff, but also like build your own lightsaber is something that it's a hidden trophy. So I guess semi spoilers. So the lightsaber that I've been using, I know I'm going to lose at some point. So I'm not getting super attached to it, but I do enjoy it for what it is.
Cool.
It's great. It's just a really fun game. But then also, the closest thing that I could compare it to, and I don't know if you've gotten to jump back into it or ever jumped into it, is the Ghostbusters video game from 2009.
Okay, yeah.
Where it feels like I am in that universe of Star Wars, but hearing a new story. Mm-hmm. And the thing that really does that is the music. Because one of my favorite things about the Star Wars films as a whole is how music like influences that world. Mm-hmm. So like just it's these little like interstitials going on while you're walking around where you're like, okay, is everything safe now? Oh, what was that? Is something going to happen? And it takes place immediately after 5 years after Order 66. So Luke and Leia presumably are 5 years old. I don't know, space-time's weird, right? Like, is Leia older than Luke because she was on Alderaan and he was on Tatooine and Alderaan has shorter years? How does the galactic calendar work?
Oh, God. Now, why did you ask me this in the middle of the show? Okay. So
no,
they
it's
probably
just
go off
stuff
Stardate,
that I think
right?
of. What?
They probably go off Stardate.
Well, Stardate is Star Trek. That'd be weird. But they probably go off.
But no, but you can Stardate. But Stardating is something that you can actually do, though. It's like Star Trek uses it as a scientific concept of keeping date in space because it is an actual way that, like, when they're using the Hubble telescope, what is the star date of the Hubble telescope so that it matches up with Earth's star date? Like, that's real.
I know, but it just feels weird to apply a generically Star Trek term to Star Wars.
Well, so they probably call it something else, like fucking like midichlorian date or some shit.
I actually think it's based on Coruscant. Like, that's why Coruscant was the seat of power, was because they based it off of a Coruscant year. Like, an Alderaan year would be X, but then there'd be like, you know, maybe 4 Alderaan years to a Coruscant year.
Yeah,
it's
so what is
weird
it, like the
stuff like
Coruscantian
that.
calendar? Like,
Yeah.
that's something, okay.
It's like Greenwich Mean Time.
Got it.
But
Got
like
it.
I'm pretty sure it's based off of Coruscant, which is why they had like all the diplomats and stuff were housed there. Again, I'm not a huge Star Wars fan, but it's just the stuff that sometimes drifts into my head. But yeah, so 5 years have passed since the slaughtering of the Jedi at the end of Revenge of the Sith.
Okay, cool.
And so you meet, spoilers for Fallen Order. So Dale, if you're listening, stop listening because you didn't get to this part. You meet Saw Gerrera, which was super cool.
Nice.
And he's still voiced by Whitaker. So it's just like one of those things where I'm like, this made it feel like it's part of the larger world.
Cool.
And I went to 2 planets that I had never heard of before. I mean, they might have bigger meaning in the Star Wars universe. They don't mean anything to me. But then I went to 2 that mean a bunch to me. The first was Kashyyyk, the home planet of the Wookiees.
Mm-hmm.
And the other was Dathomir, which is where Darth Maul comes from.
Oh, okay. All right.
So I got to go to like these cool moments, and then you see other members of Darth Maul's species on Dathomir, and it's just like, this is cool. Like, this is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that it was about time that they did something right with that IP. So I'm glad that this one worked out.
And I hope that it succeeds, and I hope that we get another one, perhaps with some customization to make my own Jedi Knight or Sith Lord. I mean, however they want to go with it. This very much seems like a proof of concept game.
I think it's going to be tricky for them to ever allow that in the Star Wars universe specifically, because just to be blunt, like Disney being protective of that universe, and so that story, they can't let it vary in enough ways to maybe allow for like a character creation, like a background. You know what I mean? Like,
well,
like
I think that you wouldn't give it the background. I think the way that you do it, and I mean, you squashed my argument before I could even make it, which is Knights of the Old Republic, where you build a character and then it's revealed at the end who that character was before they lost their memory.
Right.
And so, like, that's a really cool way, because essentially everything that you've done is your choice as a player, but that doesn't change the fact that before you took over, this person was who this person was.
Right.
And going forward, if they slot into everything that we know canonically will happen, it doesn't change the fact that, like, for one crazy summer, I called myself Neil.
Yeah. It's it becomes really difficult with such a protected IP, which is unfortunate, because like I do feel like we need a little bit more of a sandboxy like world to play in Star Wars. I think that would be really fun at some point. But I just don't know if this particular series is ever going to be it, I guess is what I'm saying.
Right. And I'm okay with that. But again, it does feel like this is proving a lot of concepts. Honestly, the only thing that I would have needed to change, because I'd be all right with Cal Kestis being the main character if you could swap the gender and maybe what they look like. Like, that's fine. Like, changing what they look like or changing their species, I don't think that would change the story as it's going. It would just give you that level
not
of
as
customization.
it's going. But think about like future like books that can be sold and things. You know what I mean? Like the way that they can really lean into that character on a merchandising front. Like the second you introduce customization, that becomes much harder to see. And I think when you're working with a company like Disney, like they want to see, like they want a sellable name, they want a sellable character design, they want something that everybody knows when they see it. They can identify it. I mean, that boils down to like the shape of Mickey's head is very specifically designed a specific way, so that the second you see it, you know exactly what it is, right? So they love that shit. So that's why I just don't know if Disney would ever allow for something like that now.
Yeah, you make a pretty compelling argument there, and I'm a little disappointed at how compelling the argument is. But also, I had already justified it in the fact that we have someone playing that role. It's an actor who is playing it. It's the guy, I think he was the Joker on Gotham. Cameron, I can't think of his last name right now.
Yeah.
Ginger fellow.
Yeah. Yeah, younger guy, much younger guy. Actually, I'm very, very surprised that that's who they scored for a leading role in a Star Wars game.
Yeah, so it's him doing it, and I'm like, you wouldn't have the emotion of this person doing the lines if you could choose to be lady or man. Plus, it would automatically like add more to the budget because you'd have to pay 2 lead voice actors for that.
Right. Right.
So I get it. And especially it's weird considering Pokemon Sword and Shield, the one thing they didn't do is give it full voice acting. And it
Hmm.
felt strange because I was playing it on my TV.
Yeah.
Like not having voice acting on my handheld, I get it. Most of the times on a handheld, I'm not listening to the music.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, oh, that's right. Pokemon doesn't do voice acting. That's a good
Man.
point right there.
Yeah. Oh man. So I'm glad. I'm
So yeah,
glad
so
that
it's really good.
you enjoyed the hell out of
I
that
gotta
too.
tell you, I gotta tell you one thing though, and that is,
Okay.
and again, spoilers for Fallen Order. So stop listening. Come back around the 42-minute mark for this. It turns into Shadows of Colossus briefly when you
Okay.
get to Kashyyyk, because you
Hmm.
have to scale an AT-AT, and
Oh
then you
man.
take it over, and you get to pilot an AT-AT as a sabotage unit, destroying other walkers.
That's
And that
awesome.
was like, I'm like, I had no idea this was going to happen, and it was incredible.
Yeah.
Like the whole climbing up it was really cool, and then like going in there and doing he literally did the hit their heads together to knock them out thing.
Nice.
It was great.
Ah,
So Fallen
that's
Order,
good.
it's definitely worth a rental, but
Yeah.
I know that once I see the price go down a little bit, I will own it so I can finish it.
Yeah.
Because I got through 3 chapters of what appears to be 12. So
All
I
right.
kind of view it like I saw the first part of the trilogy.
Nice. Very cool. Awesome, man. So what was up with the movie that you saw?
I saw the Charlie's Angels reboot,
Oh, right. Yeah, okay.
and it's sad.
Oh.
It's sad because I've read a bunch of articles about it and why it failed, and I wanted to like it. I was so excited for it. The
Hmm.
trailers really worked for me.
Yeah.
And then the fact of the matter is it wasn't a very good script.
Aw.
Like if they didn't have the actors that they had for that film, it would be dead in the water. Because they
Okay.
take a script that is not very good and like actually make it pretty enjoyable.
Cool.
But the big issue I have, and I watched like the Charlie's Angels 2011 series, which I will still say I love. I love that 2011 series of Charlie's
That
Angels.
first one, at least, is kind of undeniable. The other two, like, I feel like they become more and more of an acquired taste as you go. Like, I get why you like them. Like, for instance, there's three altogether, right? I'm not misremembering that.
What are you talking about? Three
The,
Angels?
no, the Charlie's Angels movies. There's one and there's
Oh
two.
no, yeah. There's so those are the two. Those are movies. That's not what I'm talking about.
Oh, you're talking about the
I'm
television
talking about the
series, which what they
2011
did.
TV reboot.
Okay.
That aired 4 of its 8 episodes.
Yeah, yeah, okay. I completely forgot they even put it on TV. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
I really liked that, and it gave me the feelings that I had about the original show.
Okay.
Where so did the Cameron Diaz, Drew Barrymore, Lucy Liu ones. Like, and they also had a sense of humor about the fact that, like, oh, they made the whole T.J. Hooker joke at the
Right.
very beginning, and it's like this is fantastic because they understand that we're at a time in America where the Brady Bunch movie exists.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah,
want to,
yeah.
like, we acknowledge that these exist, but please rate this movie on its own morals.
Right.
And obviously America did because the 2001 begets Full Throttle in 2003. Now, they try to do some creative stuff to make sure that the original Charlie's Angels TV show and those 2 movies exist in the same universe as the 2019 Charlie's Angels.
Okay.
And I'm fine with that. It makes me happy. But then, and spoilers for Charlie's Angels, when they have gone from a small detective, like securities and investigation industry, to a worldwide international espionage group,
Right.
you're asking me to jump through like too many hoops as a fan of Charlie's Angels.
Yeah. Yeah, well, there's a little bit of like for somebody that really loved the original show. Like I watched a ton of it when I was a kid and TV Land first came out.
Mhm.
And the movies. The like I'm a huge fan of the first one, not so much the sequel. And I may or may not be making up a third one that probably doesn't
There's
exist.
no third
So
one.
like so there you go. That's what you lost me after the first one. Like the first one I love though. And so like I there's an A team element to them, like the idea that they're not against the law, they're not, but they are kind of vigilantes in a way, right? And so like the way that they kind of have to pop in and out of a situation without getting caught, like I love that element. So the second that you make them something like an MI6 and they've got all of this backing, it loses a little bit of that charm for me of them being a small, quaint operation.
Which was my big problem with it, is that it got too big. Because the best way to describe them is they're private investigators.
Hmm.
They get hired. Charlie Townsend, is hired, and then he sends the angels out to do the investigation.
Yeah, really, they're more like the bounty hunters for Charlie being the PI. Like
Yeah.
he's the guy with the license. They're like the muscle that he sends out to actually do the work.
Yeah, I mean, to use like something that happened recently, like Archer PI.
Yeah, exactly.
Like Cyril is Charlie because he has the law degree and has the PI's license. They
Mhm.
are just employees who are then, underneath that license that belongs to him.
Right.
And it's good, right? And also there's this element to Charlie's Angels, and maybe I'm making it up, but it's what I've always felt, is that Charlie finds these girls who like need a second chance.
I mean, that's what I've always felt.
Yeah.
Like I like whether or not it's because they were on the wrong side of the law or just at a rough place in their own life. Like it's not like it didn't feel like he was picking up like street kids, but these were all women that felt like they had to prove something. Like
Right.
for sure.
So
For sure.
so then there's also that rotating element, because there were 6 angels throughout
Right.
the course of the original series, and only one of them stayed throughout all 5 seasons. And
Right.
that was good to me, because it's like, they got what they needed from this, and then Charlie went to help somebody else.
Hmm.
And all of them feel like they have like a specialized reason why they're on the team. Like
Mhm.
you don't have 2 Kelly Garretts. You have Kelly Garrett and you have 2 other angels.
Right.
Because Kelly Garrett can't do everything. She can do her specialized set of skills. Just like, to use the A team, you don't need 2 Mad Dogs because
Right.
you only need 1 pilot. Very rarely do they come up to a situation where they need 2 pilots.
Hmm.
You only need 1 tough guy. Can you imagine if there were 2 B.A. Barackuses on the A team? They get nothing done. First
For
of
like
all,
an episode. I could imagine that.
yeah,
But for
one
like an
episode, yeah. But like if that were the show, it's the
Yeah,
Ninja
right.
Turtles, right? Each
Yeah.
one of you have leader, machine guy, party guy, and
Yeah.
and tough guy.
I mean, you're talking about basic story blocks. Like,
Yeah.
like you just don't want you don't need a redundant character on screen, and the original show does a good job of doing that.
Yeah. So when you come to the 2019 Charlie's Angels, and they're a worldwide renowned espionage agency, and every member of that has gone through the same training,
Mhm.
there's no uniqueness to any of the angels.
Yeah.
Like there's this
You don't call on this one for lockpicking when they can all lockpick, right? Like,
Right.
That's yeah.
It's like
right.
it could have been anybody. It didn't need to be Kristen Stewart and Ella Bashalinsky, who were this team. It was
Right.
just like, those are the 2 that we decided to use today. They're the 2 that we assigned to this one.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's nothing special about the reason why they're on this mission. And it just is like, so you take away the inherent like specialness of what it means to be an angel. And then the other thing, how would you define Bosley in relationship to the angels?
Bosley is a mix between their like M and their Q, like always there to like stop in for like advice or to take over when needed, but also there to provide the interaction between Charlie and them.
Yeah, he's a liaison, right?
Yeah, like he's a liaison, but he's a liaison that knows his shit. He's not like helpless. He's yeah.
Yeah, perfect. That's a perfect way to describe the character. I support this. Because they're now like a spy agency, Bosley is a rank.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So
yeah.
they're like lieutenants, I mean, because I also saw Godfather Part 2 in theaters. So, like,
Nice.
looking at how the Casa Nostra broke down, they would
Right.
be like the Casa Regime, like
Okay.
the Bosleys. And then it feels weird that, you know, this whole movie is about feminism, right? Like,
Right.
there's
Right.
a real feminist message behind it. Because, you're like, one of the jokes there at the end is that, like, any prominent woman is an angel. Like, Ruth Bader Ginsburg did this jump. Or Danica Patrick is teaching her how to drive.
Nice.
And so like those are like fun little moments, but then when you meet the Bosleys, almost all of the Bosleys are men except for Elizabeth Banks' character. So it's like, okay, so but it's weird, this whole message, but then they all have to still report to men. Like, it's okay when they're all reporting to Charlie, but like there should be a better breakdown in the genders of Bosleys.
Yeah. Well, that's the idea. Like that's the theme, kind of having to take a backseat to the joke, I guess. Like, and that's unfortunate when your theme is trying to push something like a feminist message. It shouldn't ever take a backseat to anything in your thing. But if
Right.
you're
But
if the trope is that Bosley needs to show up as this guy, like, I don't know. It's weird. You're right. It's very weird.
and then like step further that like Elizabeth Banks Bosley character, she's the first angel to ever become a Bosley.
Okay.
So it'd be one thing if she was the only one, but then there are other Bosleys
Right. Right.
who are women, and it's just like, okay, so you have a moment there where you're like, she's breaking through the glass ceiling, and it's going to mean a change for this whole thing. And then the final reveal, again, spoilers for Charlie's Angels. I've been spoiling this movie the whole time. Charlie has passed away, and it is just a vocal transcoder, and it is Kelly Garrett who has assumed the identity of Charlie. And she also has a Bosley number. So she also eventually became a Bosley. It's just a bad script, like not looking at its own continuity to make
Yeah.
sure that everything jives.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
if you get someone in there who actually cares about Charlie's Angels, like it's very easy to see the holes. There's even a moment where they call the villain by a different name. Like, you don't give a guy a name like Johnny Australia, and then when you see him, they're like, yeah, John Smith is here. It's like, why did you call him that? His name is Johnny Australia. He's an Asian dude. It's hilarious.
God. Yeah. Yeah, man. I'm very excited to see it. And like
I'm excited to see it again
from
because
what,
I want
yeah,
to.
I was gonna say, from what you and Dale were saying about it, it did seem like, yes, you had these issues, but you sounds like you still had a good time. And that I don't know if I wanted more than that out of this movie, that I kind of kept forgetting was coming. You know what I mean? Like,
Right. And
as long as it's something that I can sit around and drink a beer too.
and that's exactly what it is. And I did have a good time, but I just wish that they hadn't, like, Elizabeth Banks in her script writing hadn't tried to make it more than it had to be. Like,
Yeah.
it just needed to be Charlie's Angels. They didn't need to be this global force for good. And also, and I'm sorry to do this, like, Patrick Stewart plays John Bosley, and they put him into scenes from Full Throttle and the Charlie's Angels movie. That's very early in the movie, right? To establish that these is all one, universe.
Okay.
And it's like, but then what about Bill Murray and friggin' Bernie Mac
Right. Right.
as Bosleys because they were just the family Bosley? Like, what happened?
Yeah.
Like, what you did, like, I'm
the
fine with
continuity
that.
you established, you can't just like try and fold that in and also basically retcon it.
Yeah. It's 16 years they went from three people working like as private investigators to a global cabal.
with what must be like government funding, right? And so from somewhere.
I don't know. Like, they don't ever touch upon that fact. Like, it's not even like 21 Jump Street would kind of be my gold standard for like modern reimagining of an old television show. Like,
Yeah.
Charlie's Angels was definitely it in the 2000s, but then for the aughts, it would be 21 Jump Street. Well, I mean, it came out in, what, 2009, right? But it still works, right? Like,
Yeah.
there's kind of the tongue-in-cheek, and, like, no one's going to believe that you're in high school, Channing
Exactly.
Tatum. Like,
Yeah.
like these jokes that it makes, and it's like, Yeah, and you don't ever question that stuff, or if it does, you make light of it. Like, it doesn't even make light of it. Also, they add this role of a saint, and apparently there's a saint in every safe house, and they're responsible for, like, medical, psychological, feeding them. Like, it's cool that you want to build up this universe, but it needs to make sense.
Yeah.
Because what the saint is doing is kind of what Bosley did.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's a shame. It's a shame that it doesn't hold together in a better way, so that we can like really kind of like talk about it as it being something that's gonna stick around. Because I think that's what's gonna happen is it's gonna come and go. People will remember it fondly, and I'm sure that it'll be, you know,
people won't remember it fondly, and that's where I talk about sad things.
yeah.
It made $8 million on like a $50 million budget.
But it's gonna get picked up by TNT or TBS, and it's gonna be one of those ones that they just end up showing like every other night. And those are the kinds of movies that like I think about now. You know, at 30 years old, when I was 10, I think about the thing that was on Saturday afternoons on WB, and you know, it was
it's
always
not the
movies.
90s anymore though. When's the last time you watched something on TNT live? Well,
We
never.
actually
You don't have
YouTube.
cable.
We
But
have YouTube. We have YouTube TV, and I watch a lot of like weird movies and stuff on YouTube TV.
okay. But
Yeah.
that's the thing. So like I don't know, it's just I don't want it to be forgotten. Even though I have these like script issues, and it all is on the script level. Cuz again, everyone acts their ass off. The action and stuff is very cool. I don't want it to be forgotten, and I don't like the Gem movie. I loved, but it's $5 million like take home. Not even. It was like less than that. I think it was like
Yeah.
1.5 million in its opening
Yeah.
weekend.
Yeah.
Like that movie, no one thinks about that movie, and it's sad because they did a really good job taking Gem and putting it in modern times.
Yeah.
And and I really don't want to look at the unfortunate combination between those two things is that they are primarily female driven IPs, because I don't want there to be truth or bias against that.
Yeah.
But in some way, I don't know. I don't know where it comes from, and it bothers me and it disappoints me, because I was excited and I walked away entertained but not excited anymore.
Yeah, I mean, you wanted it to be better, man. I mean, that's all it sounds like, and it's unfortunate that it wasn't. But like, as somebody that has kind of, like I said, not had that kind of expectations on it, I actually still feel pretty good about it, you know. And so it just kind of shows, like, you just there was a certain thing you wanted it to do that it didn't. I had no interest in doing anything, and so I'm just kind of happy it exists, you know.
Well, I'm excited to hear what you have to say for it once you see it, even
Yeah.
if it's years down the line.
So before we close up, I do want to just kind of say that I did also, speaking of dipping, first episode of Rick and Morty for this season came out. You had just mentioned it briefly last week, and I just wanted to point out that, yeah, man, I I think you're right. I think they are getting down to some stuff, and I think that's almost like the theme of that episode is like, hey, we're gonna get back to basics. Like there are straight up lines that are like, yeah, fuck last season, we're gonna do what we did before. We're back to just normal adventures, Rick and Morty. Like,
Sometimes
yep.
we'll do our own thing. Sometimes general, like that whole end speech is very good.
Yeah, but it's there throughout the entire episode.
Yeah.
They're talking about how shitty that and like political, like the joke, like, man, yeah, you got really political last season. Let's not do that again. It's like, yeah, okay. And in a weird way, it's that Dan Harmon response to his audience. You see it throughout Community, and you see it throughout older seasons of Rick and Morty too. Like the way that he is not afraid to directly reference his audience and his disappointment in some of the ways that they behave, and the way that he celebrates some of the ways that they behave. It's really, really funny to watch him do that in real time. So like I think that there's a lot of really good stuff in that first episode for this season. I'm excited to see more.
See, episode 2 is even better. I
Awesome.
love episode 2. I
Yeah.
love episode 2 because it feels like a subtler reaction to the third season,
Okay.
and I'm just like, it's great that they went bombastic and big in the first one. And don't get me wrong, I love all the Akira stuff in that
Yeah.
in that episode is brilliant.
Yeah.
But the way that they approach it is that like, but we're still capable of subtle storytelling. So I'm excited for once you see the second episode.
Cool.
So yeah, Anything else to add before we wrap it up? I know that was kind of like your last thought, but
I need we need to talk about Disney Plus, but I think that I will say my initial things about it. I'm glad we have a little bit more time before we talk about it because I am a little bit overwhelmed with it right now. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's kind of a bad thing.
it's my issue.
But that's my initial reaction at the moment is overwhelmed. So I do need some more time before we actually do dive into it. But we're not ignoring it. I am elbow deep in it right now, trying to figure out like what I like and don't like about it.
I watched Tall Tale. That's what I did.
Oh man,
because I wanted to watch Tall Tale. Like, it just jumped into my head earlier this year, and it wasn't available anywhere. So the first thing I did when I got Disney Plus was type it in and be like, I'm watching you.
The good thing you typed it in, because I doubt it would have been shown to you anywhere. But anyway.
Yeah. So I mean, that's what I did. And I'm excited to do other stuff. I'm excited that Dumbo is there as it was originally presented. Because that was going to be my big wall, is if they had edited Dumbo and there was a lot of talk that they were going to, I would not be a Disney Plus subscriber.
Yeah.
And they didn't.
And unfortunately, they have not really been really good with the messaging on that, because I know a lot of people that were against getting the Disney app up until I said to them they didn't do that. They didn't. People don't realize that didn't end up happening. So And then meanwhile, there are actual edits that are going on out there that people don't have all of the information on that they're talking about. I mean, like you mentioned the Gravity Falls stuff earlier, and all I'll say is like people seem to forget that there was actually a lawsuit about that symbol that needed to be settled. So
there's a reason why it shows up in the 14th episode.
Yeah,
because it was redesigned.
Exactly. Yeah. So people just need to calm their shit. I think so. That's what I'm saying is I'm overwhelmed both by the app itself and by all the other stuff around it.
The response has been crazy.
Yeah.
So let's say right now, next week's episode, we will dive into Disney Plus.
For sure.
That is a promise from the Say Report, and one that I don't think will break. Also, I was going to talk about Stadia. That came out today, right?
Yeah.
You don't feel bad if you didn't remember that, because I don't even think Google remembered that.
We did what now?
But the big issue that I have with Stadia is I took the plunge and I ordered a Founders Pack, and I'm not going to have it till December. So why did I pre-order a Founders Pack if I'm not going to get it until 3 weeks after it launches?
Yeah, that's weird. On the other hand, by that point, a lot of the initial bugs will be seen through, so you're kind of lucking out in a way.
Right.
But
it's just...
But if you want to be an early adopter, you want to be an early adopter. I get it.
Yeah, I mean, that was the reason why I'm like, oh, early adopt, because then I can monitor the adventure.
For sure. And then Steam subtly putting out some online multiplayer features that are actually apparently rocking everybody's world right now. We'll talk a little bit about that too next week.
Yeah, so Disney Plus and online gaming, those are things to look forward to next week. So if you want to get any of your thoughts in with me, you can find me on Twitter at Devin D. Decker.
Yeah, and hit me up at Siege versus the World if you have any thoughts about both Google or the Steam stuff that went down, because I am super interested in what's going on with it all right now.
Okay, so William, why don't you take us home, buddy?
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your host Devin Decker and Stephen Serwick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.